And welcome back again to the Moneyball of Wrestling. This is the MatStats Show along with Glenn Gormley and Kevin Hazard. I am Jason Bryant with part two of our three-part series as we analyze the impact of the three-point takedown in collegiate wrestling. Specifically, we're dialing into the NCAA Division I Championships and its impact there. But before we do that, we've got to start things off like we always do with some friendly banter. And we record this. This is the March show. And for the last, I don't know how many years this has been, March, this is not March. This is May. Let's start that whole thing. 3, 2, 1. So we've got, of course, starting it out with a little banter. So it is May. And what does May mean, guys? It means Wrestling Shirt a Day in May. And I have brought out the MatStats shirt. We've got a William and Mary wrestling shirt, and then we've got the National Collegiate Women's Championship shirt, which is now an antique because that is now an NCAA championship. But a little backstory: Jim Dutrow is a guy who officially started the May part of it. He's a Woodbridge guy. He wrestled at that school in Harrisonburg. I actually looked it up. The state runner-up in Virginia, Group AAA state runner-up. Lost to a pretty good guy in the finals. I think his name was Carl Perry. He did pretty good at the NCAA championships. But I was going through, doing some archival stuff, and Jim kind of took the reins with Wrestling Shirt a Day in May and ran with it. It's been a thing for the last couple years. Now, the OG version of Wrestling Shirt a Day was we used to try to do this, like how long we could do this wrestling shirt thing. We did it through Fargo. It was like a couple wrestling people on Twitter, or the artist formerly known as Twitter. And then one year I just said, all right, I wonder how long I can go. And I went 366 days. I actually missed a day in between. Nobody noted it. But Joe Caprino from Indiana Matt and myself were going head to head in terms, and we got people involved, like who's wearing a wrestling shirt. He went on a cruise with his wife, so he lost cell coverage, so he couldn't post it. So he had to stop like midway through the year. I went 366 of the 365 days. The one day I did not wear a shirt was a Sunday. I was dressed for church. I just laid on the couch all day. I was in February, and I didn't go outside. And then I woke up the next going, oh crap, I forgot to wear a shirt. Nobody caught me on it. But again, to pack and to plan 300 and a whole year of shirts with no repeats. There might have been brands or teams or schools repeated, but the individual shirts were not repeated. That involved quarter zips, that involved t-shirts, polos, anything that was a shirt, sweatshirts, crew necks, the whole kit and caboodle. And I remember going through towards, I think we were in November, and I started it in April. And my wife was like, how long are you going to do this? I was like, for a year. She's like, oh, for another couple weeks. She was thinking to like December 31st. No. So I went the entire round, and I had to pack for Australia through that. I mean, it got to be a real cumbersome. So thankfully, Jim Dutrow, thank you very much for bringing some sanity to this thing. And this project is also kind of a way to promote the sport. Hey, here's a school with wrestling. Thank you. You will very rarely see me wear a school that doesn't have wrestling. Kevin, I mean, it's your alma mater, so you can wear that. But like, I won't wear, I got a friend of mine from high school is on a work trip right now. She said, yeah, I ran into somebody that wrestled at Cleveland State, asking if you could wear a Cleveland State shirt for the shirt a day thing. And I'm like, I wore it a couple years ago when they had a program. I typically don't keep shirts from programs that have been jettisoned. So sadly, I do not have a Cleveland State shirt anymore. Now, what I also do, I do donate a lot of these shirts because a lot of them are gifted to me. I give them to wrestling clubs. I donate them to the Salvation Army, to Goodwill. I bring them to Fargo. A couple years ago, we had earthquake relief for Ecuador and hurricane relief in Puerto Rico. Brought a whole bin of them there. So they get reused. I am thankful for every shirt that I get sent. I also buy several of them. I am a sucker for a fundraiser. So I've spent a lot, especially that year. The rest, I was sitting there like that whole year. I'm like, great. I went to Blue Chip. I'm sitting there like, okay, where's teams I don't have? And that was my first VMI shirt. I remember picking up like a Gardner Webb shirt, a VMI shirt, an Edinburgh shirt that were like the shirts that you see them there at the Blue Chip booth at NCAA's. I'm just like, I need to see if I can make it to the end. And ultimately I made it. I have a drawer in our spare room right now that I haven't even tapped into yet as we record this on May 13th. It's just like, all right, I've got stuff that usually only gets worn there once a year, and it's cool that I don't want to give that stuff away because it's really cool. It was a gift, or it's super meaningful. Yesterday, for example, I wore the original Jordan Burroughs shirt that got doubles. So I throw it out on my Instagram at Jason M. Bryant. I'm not as prolific on X. So I think I missed a day or two on Twitter, X, whatever. But on Instagram and Facebook, that's where I'm putting them because that's where I'm talking a little bit about it. The only one I didn't do a video on was Keep CB Wrestling, which really didn't need a video. It was self-explanatory. The picture said 1,000 words, like I'm saying 2,000 right now when it could have been 20. But that is the intro for Wrestling Shirt a Day in May, the annual update. Again, Jim Dutrow, Northern Virginia guy, giving us giving the project some love, and again my own personal journey of 365 t-shirts or different shirts, no repeats. So how I found this one today, this one hangs up in the closet behind me. I need to know where it is. It's the only one that's Tennessee construction worker orange. I could see if I couldn't see, I could see this thing. So Glenn, it's like Joe Pesci in My Cousin Vinny. I wore this ridiculous thing for you.
Thank you.
End of soliloquy. Anything to add about this, gentleman?
No, I think you've said it all.
Okay, good. Now we can start the show, huh?
Okay, thank you guys for that introduction, Jason, and the history of the
great, the longest introduction, second longest introduction in show history, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so today is part 2 of our 3-part series on the rule change to make it a 3-point takedown. We now have 6 years of this study, 3 years after the rule change, 3 years before, all from the NCAA Men's Division I Championships. This episode specifically deals with the total points scored and the margin of victory. Okay, on slide 2, as always, it's our little table of contents are in this episode. If you're going through, and as we always say, don't read this when you're driving. Okay. As far as this is concerned, the reason this was created was Moyer from the NWCA wanted to have a library statistical analysis. That was the genesis of this show. Okay. This show is opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those opinions of the NWCA, nor do Gormley, Jason, and Kevin always agree with each other on every single point. MatStats
or colors of t-shirts. We don't agree on that either.
T-shirts.
Yes. MatStats is a numbers-based show. We try to give people information, and then they can develop their opinions in a more educated manner.
All right. So also every month we do talk about the number of college wrestlings. Can we talk about the number of college teams in the NCAA, NAIA, NCWA, NJCAA, and the CCCAA? That sounds like a communist thing. Men and women.
They have rebranded. We'll get to that on the next slide, by the way.
Yeah, I fixed it on the next slide, but not on this one. Okay.
Well, I didn't fix it either.
From the nadir of NCAA men's D3 teams, okay, there was only 87 teams in 2012, guys. It's only 14 years ago, Division III teams. Now we have 136 men's D3 teams. It's the most since 1985. It's an increase of 56%. And then as you see on the next slide, and once again, don't look at it if you're driving, we do have the NJCAA, and now California's rebranded to 3C2A. Okay.
Which, and we have again, CCCAA, 3C2A. I actually covered their men's championships 2 years ago out in Lemoore. So that's a fun league. Their women's just finished up. They're a spring league. The men's league is a fall league. So, yeah, they do things a little differently out there. It's a fun league. Real fun.
California.
Yep. Go ahead. Next slide.
On a clear day, you could see college athletics. Gorms, how about a quick update on some of the events that we dealt with in our 3-part series? On a clear day, you can see college athletics.
Certainly. We're trying to do this real quickly at the start of each show. What we look at here is like as a business model. And March Madness seems to have been the answer to everything, every financial problem in any college. It never answers all the problems, of course. But suddenly March Madness is not the answer. You can't spend your way to prosperity. Okay. The hopes and dreams of covering these huge expenses for men's basketball being offset by March Madness is gone. Even with there's now going to be 76 teams in 2027. The goose that laid the golden egg just can't lay a big enough egg anymore, guys. Okay. And to put the numbers in perspective, this was the 2025 season when I was putting this show together. That was the last time the men's basketball tournament was finished, 2025. The SEC set a record with 14 schools qualifying, and that school in Gainesville won it that year. Okay. They brought in $70 million from March Madness payouts. Their estimated rev share starting in 2020, 25, 26, just for men's basketball was $49.2 million. So they did have a positive net of almost $22 million. The Big Ten, which is the next big dog, and you can argue maybe Big Ten's bigger than the SEC, whatever, they lost $13 million on this. Just the rev share is throwing this thing upside down so much. Okay. Now, what about the NIL part of things, guys? Texas men's basketball coach Sean Miller, just a few days ago, said he believes there are between 20 and 25 men's basketball teams with an NIL budget above $20 million. Okay? Oh, you don't need a master's degree in stats to know this, guys, but only 16 teams can make the Sweet 16. Okay? So if 20 to 25 have a budget of 20 million or more, somebody with that budget isn't making the second weekend. Okay? If this increases to at least 33 teams, somebody with a budget of 20 million is losing first round. How many big time donors are going to put up with that? Okay, guys, that's going to be rough.
Yeah, then they got to pay for the coach's buyout, but that's another story entirely.
Yeah, oh yeah, you got it. That's a big. Now, guys, the wolf is at the door here. Okay, a little bit under a third of all the money the NCAA pulled in through the March Madness went directly to the conferences. Okay, if I'm a college basketball coach, I want more of this pie. All right? I got bills to pay, and we're losing a ton of money. I need more money. Okay? I'm going to want that. Is it just a matter of time before that happens where it really goes big time all to the SEC and the Big Ten, and in basketball, of course, ACC, Big East and stuff? Or do they split away? Do they become like the college football playoff? Who knows? Okay. I don't like where he's going. So before we delve too much into that, Kevin, let's get to the next part.
Okay, I think that is frightening, and I think that's something we need to keep looking at. But that's what we've covered in the past. What are we going to talk about this month, and why is it titled? I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I feel like I should have you two glasses on, Bono glasses.
Yes, Bono glasses.
And then again, Bono coaches in Madison. Bono sings in U2. Okay. That's my semantical pants today.
Yeah, but they use the same. They wear the same glasses though.
I have seen Chris wear those sometimes. And by the way, when I was overseas, there is a brand of like snack that's Bono or Bono. It's all over. I took a picture of it. I'm like, I should send that, but then I forgot. Anyway.
Okay. I'm going to try to get the pronunciation.
Bono.
Bono is the social activist who's a really good singer and makes a ton of money. Bono's a really good wrestler. Okay. Now, all right. The topic is the new three-point rule. This month, it's going to be about the total points scored and the margin of victory and what needs to happen with all this stuff and how it's changed. Okay. The reason it's called, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It's a very famous song by the world famous band YouTube, which ironically is named after a spy plane. Okay. But we don't really have an answer for you guys on the big picture. Is it a good rule or not? You know, because with all the stats we're uncovering, It's really going to come down to a matter of opinion and stuff. Okay. If football tried to say a field goal was worth 10 points, that would be a bad decision. Okay.
Not if you're kickers. Kickers would love that. Their value would
Yes.
increase exponentially.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
rating soccer teams left and right.
Exactly. Okay. So our methodology, what we used here is the matches from 21 to 26 that did not end in a pin or a default to get the total amount of points scored. Okay. So we have 3,337 matches. We also go back and pick up some matches from 88 to 92 and 2017 to 2020. So we have over 6,000 matches total in this thing. So we do a very comprehensive stuff. And I want to give another shout out to Kevin Hazard, John Phipps, and Captain Patrick McLaughlin, who did all my research for me on this. Couldn't have done it without him.
Okay, so we're talking about total points and margin of victory, and before and after 21-23 to after 24-26. Can we show the changes for 3 years before and after the change in the takedown to 3 points? And like we learned in our last episode, takedowns actually decrease 7% per minute. And can we incorporate that into the analysis?
Okay, Kevin, thank you. From 21 to 23, the total points scored in the matches at the championship was 10.16, and the margin of victory is 4.56. So then when we switch ahead to the next 3 years, the most recent, it went up to 11.22 and 5.63. Okay, so the scoring increased, right? There's got to be more action, okay, because the total points went up 10% and the margin of victory went up 23%, as you can see on slide 21. However, the reason for this increase is inflation. We took the most common way to score points, a takedown, which is now 58% of all points scored. Okay, we raised that from 2 to 3 points. Of course, the points went up. The total points went up. Okay, so we saw a decrease in scoring moves per match of almost 7% in our last show, and a decrease in takedowns per match of almost 9%. Okay, but what we're seeing here is just an increase of points because of inflation. Now, if a takedown was worth 2 points in the last 3 years, we would have only had 9.09 points per match. Now, this is hypothetical because we're contending on this 3-part series that people's human nature takes off when you change the rules. Okay. Kind of a Lafleur curve type deal situation here. Okay. So if you look at slide 24, the points per match in 21 to 23 were 10.16, went down to 9.09. That's a decrease of 10.5%. So, guys, the scoring and the action has gone down. Do we know enough after 3 years to state it's unequivocally because of the rule change? No. Okay. Because it's still within it's not outside the significance margin situation there. So it is something to concern ourselves with.
Okay, how does this work with the long-term trend in scoring? Back in 22, we said the long-term. Why we did a show? Why do we keep score? And can we incorporate that data to see if there's more long-term trend in the reduction of points, and not just because of the new takedown rule? And can this help MatStats say there's some significance in the 7-point decrease?
Very good question, Kevin, because anytime you expand the window of your study, you're more likely to get an accurate answer. Okay. So lo and behold, we did a MatStats show in the summer of 2022, and we compared 1988 to 92, a 5-year period, to 2017 to 22, which was a 5-year period because sadly there was no nationals in 2020. Okay. The first of those periods, 88 to 92, we saw total points of 11.97 and the margin of victory of 4.93. The second 5-year period, we saw 10.84 points and a margin of victory of 4.98. Okay? So, what does this mean? It means the scoring went down 9% and the margin of victory was almost constant. Okay? Which was surprising to me when we first investigated that 3 years ago. The annual decrease, annual percentage wise, is about a quarter, 0.29%. Okay, it's minimal because it's a long term 30-year each year. Okay, now a lot of people have been floating that improved defense seems to be the most logical reason for the decrease in scoring from 88-92 to 2017-22. And as a guy that's gone to a lot of tournaments, I mean, the funk and everything, I think the defense has increased drastically. Okay? Another reason would be greater parity, that now there's more quality kids. If that was the case, the margin of victory would have decreased in 30 years, but it did not. So, yes, it does lead me to believe that it was just increased defense.
All right. So we uncovered the trend in part one of, the less scoring. And does that show a continuation of the trend we found in episode 11? Or does the implementation of the new takedown rule increase this trend enough to show there's something bigger in play?
Okay. Yeah. Now, when you're comparing two sets of data and one has a 30-year gap and the other one has a 3-year gap, you really just can't use the absolute percentage. You need to use an annualized number. Okay? So in the first series with the 30-year gap, the points per match went down 1.13, and in the second gap that had a 3-year break went down 1.07. That sounds identical, doesn't it, guys? However, the annual change on the first one is 0.02. The second one is negative 3.65. That's a huge annual difference, guys. All right. And I'll give you a quick NBA lesson. The old rule of 72 we learn on like day 2 or day 3 in NBA school. It tells you if the annual percent increase, how many years does it take to double? Like if you have a 1% annual increase, it doesn't take 100 years to double. It takes almost 70. If you have a 20, it doesn't take 5 years. It takes 3.8. Okay. So what we learned just comparing those two is there is a continually decline in scoring, but that decline has sped up in the 3-year period with the new 3-point takedown. Okay. If this would continue, the decrease, we would have 7 points per match in real terms in the pre 3-point takedown. This is a concern of mine, guys. We needed to monitor this after year 4 of the 2027 tournament and 2028 year 5, because is inflation hurting the sport? If this continues, it's a real concern. Okay. We are not ready to say it is the result of the new takedown rule, guys. Okay. Because I'm a mathematician. I try not to jump to conclusions, but I am nervous that it could be. Okay. Any thoughts on that part of it, show, guys? Kevin, Jason?
I mean, stats wise, I mean, you're telling us the action is down and scoring is up. Okay. I guess the question that jumps out at me is trying not to be the host of the show for a minute and trying not to be like, well, well, what about this? What about this? Like, what's the difference? I guess is what I'm trying to look at. It's like, what are is there is this a is it a problem? I think that's the best question. Is the scoring decrease a problem right now? Or are we not to that stage where statistically it's not significant to be a problem? I guess that's where I would go with this is like, do we need to change anything? Was the previous one a problem? Are we at a problem now? Did we solve a problem by changing it? Did we, it's like coming up with an answer to a question that hasn't been asked yet, I guess is where I'm going with this.
Yeah, Jason, I understand your thoughts, and I understand we're trying to answer a question that hasn't been asked yet. Um, some of the greatest football games I've ever seen have been low scoring games, right? Okay. And, to each his own on that. Um, I don't think anybody wants to bring back the eliminating the shot clock in men's basketball in college, okay, for a 12-10 final. So, there's a lot of credibility on why a takedown should be worth 3 points, okay? But if at the end of 28 we see a really decrease in the action, are we cutting off our nose to spite our face?
I tell
Yeah,
you,
I'd be
I tell you what,
curious.
I tell you what I'm thinking watching this. I like the 3-point takedown, but I'm wondering, and there's been a sea change in wrestling style, and I think that's accelerated over the last decade. There's a lot more funk, and I think that adds action, even if it doesn't score a lot of points. It's not a sprawl and just stopped. They go through these gyrations that never happened when I was a kid. I like it much better. I think it's much so. I'm wondering how much that is, the change in style, if that's also a factor.
Yeah.
One thing that I would look at is I would point to a rule change that did not, you wouldn't really necessarily notice it on the scoreboard. It's the neutral danger call. So we are not, I know Jesse Delgado and Dean Heil get hit with this a lot because they would sit there, leg pass, and just kind of hang on their back. Well, when you're in a neutral position, there's no points there. So what it is, I think that's created more situational scrambling where we could have these long, drawn out flurries of action and then there's a stalemate, or there's the action goes out of bounds and we get the legit action call, not the action call that's like, I don't want to call stalling because there's 20 seconds left to go in in a tie match. So I think that rule, to the point, points don't always, what's the word we're looking for? Correlate to action, right? We can,
Correct.
I will point to an NHL first round playoff game, a second round playoff game. It was the Avalanche and the Wild, because living in Minnesota, we're watching hockey. Yes, we're watching the playoffs with two sports here in Minnesota, which is very strange this time of year. But that game, the Avs Wild game, game one, was 9-6. And my niece's husband, he played hockey, and we were talking about the game when we're at a family gathering. It's like, it was just such a sloppy hockey game. It was one of the most exciting games I've watched in a while. It's like, yes, down 3-0. Oh, yeah. Again, it doesn't have to be crisp and clean to be exciting. It doesn't have to be football 48-41 to be exciting. You could have somebody run for 300 yards and score no touchdowns and be like, wow, that guy had a great game. But the fantasy players are like, what? No touchdowns. It's like, or you get Jerome Bettis, who has 2 carries for 2 touchdowns. And that's, great statistics. Lies, damn lies, and statistics is what we're boiling back to. So, was there a point in that statement? Just because there's more points doesn't mean it's more exciting. Just because there's less points doesn't mean it's less exciting. I think the product is still very good. I wish we could have there's some stalling things, I think, that are really the impetus for a lot of the ire, but I think we have a good product right now. And of course, we always point to the outlier, the 2-1 tiebreaker, snoozer, as like, this is what's wrong with our sport. Well, there's 6,000. What I'd like to know, Glenn, of all those matches that we've got, the 6,000 matches, how many of them went to the tiebreakers, and did those increase as the rounds increase? There are more tiebreakers in the semis and finals. Does the wrestling get more boring as the quality of wrestler improves? That would be an interesting topic if we can boil it down. So I have my own, anecdotal theories on that, nothing statistical, but just some thoughts.
Yeah, that is part of what's going to be discussed on part 3 of this.
All right, good. Dynamite lead in.
Yes,
Kevin,
it's a dynamite lead in.
We continue.
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
All right. 23.4% increase in MOV from 21-23 to 24-26. Can we look at the data, explain the ramifications of that?
All right, sure, guys. As we talked about, the margin of victory went up significantly. Okay, let's look here at the amount of major decisions and tech falls that we've had increase from 21-23 to 24-26. The majors went up 14%. The techs 228%. Which, when something goes up 200%, it triples. Okay, people get that confused all the time. So there's 3.28 times the amount of technicals since the rules been changed. Okay. On slide 37, we have listed there all and every match how many 0-point victories were there. There were 7 of them. Okay. Where it was just what Jason was asking the question of on the criteria. Okay.
Although there is a statistical anomaly there in our track wrestling system that if the scorekeeper doesn't know exactly how to make that T22 RT TB2, you see it all the time. It drives me nuts at the Nationals when you see the point added at the end of a tiebreaker. No, you do not add the point. So I think the 0 and 1 may have a degree of a slight error rate there because you do not add a point when it's a tiebreaker unless you don't add a point unless you got a minute of riding time. You do not add riding time on a technical fall if the match does not go 7 minutes. These are two just I don't know why we're still having an issue with technology on that. That's another rant entirely, but it's a mini rant. But I have a sticker. Did the match go 7 minutes? Yes. Add the riding time. No, don't add the riding time, regardless of the outcome. You don't add riding time on a tech fall if it's 4 minutes and 28 seconds. A lot of people don't know that. You don't add the point on the board, whether the referee says it or not. You're not adding the point. The match is a tiebreaker. You don't add a point. Anyway.
Yeah, you can win, 1-1 or whatever. Okay.
Sadly, yes, there are ties in wrestling and folk style. The riding time, the tiebreakers is folk style criteria, folks. Yep. Credit to Andrew Flo for coming up with that one. That's okay. His. I will give him proper credit. Anyway, nuances aside.
On slide 38, guys, this is a bar chart where it shows the margin of victory starting at 0-1 going all the way up. And you see a spike there at 8, okay? And then you see another spike at 15, okay? And when we did this show years ago, Kevin Hazard was the first one to notice the spike. I called it Hazard's razor, kind of like Occam's razor, okay? So there's a reason there's a spike at 8 and 15, guys. Everything else is going smoothly. Guess what the reason is? There's bonus points, okay? So the next slide, we see all the margin of victories from 24 to 26, and then a chart with that showing the thing. And of course, guess what? There's a spike at 8, a spike at 15, and a spike at 16 on the slide 40 that you can see. Once again, showing the Hazard's razor. Okay. Then slide 41, we put the first 3 years group next to the second 3-year group. Okay. And what you can see there is the blue one happens to be the 21 to 23, and the orange one is 24 to 26. That the closer matches 1 and 2, there's more from the pre 3-point rule. Okay. And then all of a sudden at 15 and 16, you see there's more because we said the technicals tripled. Okay. So,
and also to consider, you look at your overtime matches; those are 4-1 now. They're not 3-1. So your 2-point, your overtime matches, 90% of those, I would guesstimate, probably more than that, are going to be the 4-1 variety instead of additional near fall points or the stall or the 1-point stall in overtime. So I'm just talking
Sure.
specifically sudden victory. So
Yep. No, you're right about that. Next slide.
All right, looking at those spikes, should we consider changing the 8-point margin for major decisions? Are there any statistical reasons to change this for the major decisions?
Yeah, there is some statistical reasons changes, Kevin. Takedowns used to be almost 49% of all points. Now they're almost 59%. Okay. And we increased the value of the takedown. We have 14% more major decisions right now. If we moved all the outfield walls in Major League Baseball in by 14%, that would cheapen the home run, right? And all the purists would be bitching about it. So I think there's some value in this on why we should consider doing this. Now, where did that 8-point number come from? It's been that way since I started wrestling in 72. I got no idea. Okay. I don't know if anybody's alive who made that decision anymore or why it happened. Okay. But I certainly don't think just because it's always been 8 means it's correct. Okay. Now, we're using stats here. It's tough to use stats to predict human reaction to new rules and decide. Okay. So if you do a point lag, okay, in the 21 to 23, the cumulative number of margin of victories at 8 is 1,425. If you do it for 10 points from 24 to 26, it's 1,429. That's as close as it gets to dead on accurate, right?
That's pretty
Okay.
And I know you've got a statistical thing on this. I just think the simplicity, introducing. Well, why is it 8? Like to somebody that doesn't know, 10 is a nice round number. It's the base of the metric system, for example, that most of the world uses for their measures and such, and weights and measures. We are a weights and measure sport. We look at like 10. 10's easy. 10 yards is a first down. 10.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
That's when I have less of I don't have, that doesn't, it's like, okay, well, you moved that up. Well, 10 points. Yeah, you beat them by 10. Well, that's a number that the regular Joe on the street can. 8. It's like when you're at like Busch Gardens in Williamsburg and you see that speed limit sign that says 8. What? 8? Yeah. What? 8? Just make it 10 or 5. Anyway, mini rant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 1st and 8, right? So, yeah. And because there's a spike at the 8-point moves right now, okay, at the 8-point margin of victory, excuse me. If we made it 10, there's reason to believe, okay, people would be doing more moves and more action to get to 10. Okay, because right now, if someone's winning by 8, 9 points, there's really no reason to shoot a takedown again. Because you have all the points you're going to get for the major. Okay. So it is speculative because, different human reaction with stuff that we're doing on. And basically, for me to just wrap up why I like the 10 so much is statistically it works. And just what Jason Bryant said, 10's a lot easier to remember than,
8.
What is pi? 3.141529, I mean,
I stop at 3.14 or
5.9.
apple, peach, cherry. Those are my favorite pies right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but everyone can remember 10. Next slide.
Should have used the cricket. I don't know if my cricket sounder's ready to go because that joke was just really bad.
Okay. Slide 47, Jason.
All right, so we thinking about margin of victory for what about the margin of victory for the tech fall? Any reason for moving that up also? And if so, what?
Okay, the tech fall is even a stronger reason to move up because we saw an increase of 3.28 multiplier, okay, or 228%. All right, you can look at this in 2 ways, though. If the match is going to be a blowout, should we just end it quickly? Okay. Or you could say we would see a lot more action in this situation, because the same spike thing that people are going to have to go to 20 points to get it, or 18 points, whatever we decide on that. Okay. It's impossible to get the same statistical data that I got for the major, because the match ends once it's past 15 and the hold's broken. Okay. Now, once again, if you guys remember, there used to be a superior decision for 12 points. Where did we come up with that number? And why was that erased? That was erased because then we got the technical and there was too many darn things going on. Why was the number 15 selected in the 80s? I don't know. I was wrestling then, and I never heard of a reason. We just accepted that was the reason. I like Jason's thought about the 20. It's another 10, 20. It makes sense. Okay. And we'll see what happens. But I definitely think we need to do something about it, because on a past show, when Penn State barely beat one of Iowa's total team points, we went back and said, well, they changed the placement bonus points. And now the major and the technical is a lot easier. So it is a little bit apples and oranges and stuff. But yeah, I think we need to do something with this, Kevin. One of the very interesting. Good.
The only thing I would suggest, if we changed it to 20, I think Mitchell Messenbrink we'd have to change him to 30, because 20 would not be a problem for him.
He doesn't get tired. He's really good at that.
No. He doesn't know what the third period is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the 20 and I'm like, man, do we really need to see a bludgeoning like that? That's the thing. Like, at one point, are you just embarrassing somebody?
Yeah.
At the same point, though, is that more of an emphasis to get the fall? Be like, man, I got to score 10 more points. Why don't I just go pin this guy? Because 15 you can get to quick. Maybe we get an uptick in falls, which is something that, like, again, the old school folks are clamoring for. They want to find ways to get more pins. Well, you make that tech fall harder to achieve, maybe you get more falls. Maybe there's a benefit here. I still think that until we change the dual meet scoring thing, this is, really nothing's going to move here, because there's no problem with the dual meet to solve, because again, the dual meet doesn't solve anything in the championship structure. So all those things are related. But I mean, a 10 and 20, I have no hard argument against this. I have no hard argument for it, other than it's simple. This is, again, while we're doing this statistically, Glenn, I mean, it just 10 and 20, it's easy. But again, there's I just worry about there's this, we adjudicate the outlier entirely too much in this sport. So we try to legislate it rather, not adjudicate. So anyway, I like 10 and 20. If we've got point scoring, make the tech fall harder to get, because you want more pins. More pins. That's the ultimate goal of the sport, right?
Yep.
Mini rant.
Yeah, and Jason, you raise a good point, because, in some of these mismatches in college football, it's 35-0 at halftime, and the fans or the team that's winning are leaving.
I mean, that school in Norfolk once lost a game 80-20, in which they ended the game early and had a running clock. That's Division I big boy football right there.
Yeah.
So
it's a version of a technical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take the over. Anyway.
Okay. So anyway, guys, here's an interesting thought on the technicals. With Kevin Phipsey, Captain McLaughlin's help, we have the amount of total time for every technical fall from 21 to 23 to 24, 26. Okay. Originally, people would think, well, the technicals are much quicker in 24, 26, right? They went from 5 minutes and 19 seconds to 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Why did it not decrease much more vigorously? Well, here's the reason. There were so many more techs, because matches that would not have been a tech beforehand are now techs, and they're getting that at 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, etc. I hope I explained that well to people. But I did want to throw that in there, that The technical is about the same length of time on average.
Well, and if you look at that though, you're like, oh wow. Well, then you realize it's a 7-minute match in college. You're
Yeah.
basically it's 2 periods. Like you're cutting off 2 extra minutes basically of time with
Sure.
105 more outcomes. Yikes.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. And I just explained with the average tech time why that
Right.
works. Jason mentioned earlier in this show, and we have mentioned this on many match stats. If the match doesn't go 7 minutes, there is no riding time. Okay. So with this drastic increase in technical falls, it makes sense that the riding times decreased 21% from 21-23 to 24-26. Okay. However, if you control for the increase in text, the riding time and the extra text, there's still a 10% decrease there, which I find very interesting. Okay. Controlling for the increase of the text, there's still a decrease in riding time. So this could show something different going on in the sport with the increase of the takedown, that all of a sudden it makes more sense to cut somebody loose if you have dominant on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about that, we talked about it last month, catch and release.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't need to ride. I can go pick up 2 more points. I'm not winning 2-1. I'm winning 3-1. I release, get another takedown, and all of a sudden, I'm up by 5 before.
Yeah.
You know. So that's it. But I digress. But the new takedown rule, did it have any effect on the number of pins?
All right. As we talked quickly about before, whether the increasing the technical might help increase the number of pins. The number of pins from 21 to 23 to 24, 26 went down by 10.5%. Okay. Now, once again, it's only a 3-year window, and we don't have enough information to say this is statistically significant yet. And we have a list of all the pins we see each year, and then we have one of the graphs that Kevin has gotten Gormley to put in these things. And you can see it's just floating up and down. If this trend does continue, though, to go down, I think there's even more reason, as Jason has mentioned, to take that technical to 20, because perhaps that's part of the reason we might be seeing less pins. Okay. So even that there is no significant statistical data to show the takedown has affected the number of pins, it has gone down. And, there's a ton of people that love to see a pin. And, the announcers at the national tournament have been famous, for telling us what action's going on.
I don't want to give that one away.
Okay.
Continue.
All right. Anyway.
Okay, so we just covered a lot of information. How about we just do a quick summary?
Certainly, Kevin. There's 3 main takeaways from this show. 1, the total points and margin of victory went up due to inflation. 2, the decrease in total points adjusted for inflation has become much more rapid since the new takedown rule. Number 3, it is time for wrestling to change the margin of victory for major divisions and technical falls.
I like my international 3. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I did it. I thought I did it right.
Yeah.
All right,
Kevin, give us your Kev notes.
Okay. Number 1, the men's D3 teams have increased 56% since 2012. And I think we need to thank the NWCA for a lot of that. I know that that's been a major focus for them. Number 2, in 2025, less than a third of the March Madness revenues went to the conferences. Just extrapolating, how long before men's D1 basketball follows the CFP and eliminates the NCAA, or they demand a much bigger piece of the pie? Number 3, which would kill revenue for college sports in general. 3, our data for the effect on scoring of the 3-point takedowns over the last 6 years That includes just in those last 3,337 matches. That's significant. Number 4, with the advent of the 3-point takedown rule, total points went up 10.46%, and the margin of victory went up 23%. Number 5, the increase in total points and margin of victory was caused by inflation, not more action. Number 6, and that last conclusion is backed up by data. If the takedown was still worth 2 points in 2024-6, there would have actually been a decrease in the total match points of 10.53%. Number 7, after we incorporated the data from the 1998 to 1922 D1 championships, we found a decrease in total points of 9.44% from 88 to 2022. And this trend continued downward from 21-23 to 24-26, but the rate of decrease increased from an annual rate of 0.02% to 3.6% over the last 6 years. That's a really significant difference. Number 8, if the trend noted above continues for the next 10 years, we'll have a little over 7 points per match, down from almost 11 points in 2017 and 92. Got to wonder if that's going to be boring. Number 9, could the downward shift in points per minute be mitigated if we make the major a 10-point margin of victory and the tech either 18 or 20? Those two changes should be explored. And number 10, the number of pins went down from 21-23 to 24-26, but not a significant change, and we'll continue to look at that. And like Jason said, maybe we make that margin of victory bigger. Maybe pins go up because it's harder to get to 18 or 20.
Thank you, Kevin. Jason and Kevin, you have anything to say before I close the show?
No, I think that was it. I think there's a lot of mini rants I can go on here. Kevin, I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Okay. The next episode will include more mini rants, okay? And it'll be the third part of our 3-part series on the takedown rule. This will be scoring by round. In other words, as the competition gets better, how the scoring changes, and by the weight class, and how the new 3-point rule has affected this. So tune in next month, same mat time, same mat channel. On behalf of my co-hosts, Jason Bryant and Kevin Hazard, I'm Glenn Gormley. See you next month.